Hello and welcome back to the William Gomes podcast. I am William Gomez and I am grateful to have you here. Today, we explore one of the most powerful and revealing processes in psychoanalysis. It is something that shapes intimate relationships, professional relationships, and even brief encounters. It is something that appears almost everywhere. Human beings try to understand or be understood. This is the phenomenon of transference. Transference is often misunderstood. People may think of it as projecting onto others or reenacting past experiences or forming emotional attachments that do not make sense. But in psychoanalytic thinking, transference is something deeper and far more structural. Transference is the way in which the unconscious speaks through relationships. It is the process through which the past returns in the present, not as memory, but as a living force that shapes desire, fear, and expectation. To understand transference, we must begin with this simple but profound truth. We do not encounter others with a blank slate. We come to every relationship with a history of signifiers, emotional experiences, and unconscious assumptions. This early experience leave traces. They shape the way we hear others, the way we interpret their responses, and the way we position ourselves in relation to them. Transference is the movement of the stresses into present relationships. Transference begins long before analysis. A child learns to read the world through their early caregivers. Words, gestures, tones, and expressions all become signifiers that help the child navigate desire and meaning. The signifiers form a blueprint. They shape the child's expectations of what others are like, how they respond, what they allow, and what they prohibit. These expectations become part of the unconscious. When we meet someone new, these signifiers do not disappear. They quietly shape how we respond. We may assume someone is disapproving because a familiar tone echoes in their voice. We may trust someone quickly because something in their presence feels reassuring. We may feel anxious in situations that resemble old conflicts. These reactions are not simple projections, they are movements of the unconscious, where old signifiers find new places to attach themselves. This is the essence of transference. It is not remembering the past, it is reliving the structure of the past in the present. The unconscious does not work with stories, it works with signifiers. When certain signifiers appear in a relationship, they activate earlier structures. The subject begins to relate to someone in the present as though they were someone from the past. Transference becomes especially visible in therapeutic settings because the analyst listens without offering the usual cues of everyday conversation. This creates a space for the subject's unconscious patterns to emerge. The analyst becomes the place where the subject's desires, fears, and unresolved conflicts are directed. The analyst is not the cause of these feelings, but the one who receives them. This receiving is not passive, it is an essential part of the analytic process. In analysis, the subject may feel admiration, irritation, longing, or distrust toward the analyst. These feelings are real, but they do not originate in the analyst as a person. They arise from the subject's relationship to the signifiers that structure their unconscious. The analyst becomes the other, the one who is positioned at the point where the unconscious seeks recognition. This is why transference is so powerful. It is the unconscious speaking. Transference also reveals desire. Desire is rarely transparent. It is shaped by childhood experiences, by how the subject learn to seek love, to manage conflict, to cope with disappointment, and to negotiate their place in the world. These early patterns form a template that often goes unexamined. In transference, desire becomes visible. The subject's emotional reactions to the analyst reveal Their deeper patterns of longing and frustration. Transference also reveals the subject's relation to authority. Some people expect authority to judge them, others expect authority to rescue them, others fear authority, mistrust it, or attempt to challenge it. These patterns are not about authority in the present, they reflect the subject's early signifiers. In the analytic setting, this reaction becomes clearer because the analyst is positioned as someone who listens and holds the space for the subject's speech. What is important to emphasize is that transference is not a mistake. It is part of the structure of human experience. It is how the unconscious communicates. When strong feelings arise in a relationship, they often reflect old emotional pathways. Transference does not recreate the past, it reveals the structure that the subject continues to inhabit. Transference can also help us understand why certain relationships feel intense. Sometimes we meet someone and feel drawn to them instantly. Sometimes we feel uneasy without knowing why. Sometimes we become protective, defensive, or vulnerable in ways that do not match the situation. These responses often arise from transference. Something in the present echoes something from the past. A familiar signifier returns and the unconscious responds. Transference is not limited to strong emotions. It appears in subtle ways. The tone someone uses may remind us of an early figure. A phrase may evoke past expectations. A gesture may feel familiar. These details activate transference because the unconscious recognizes signifiers before the ego does. Repetition also plays a role here. People often find themselves in similar relational patterns because transference structures their desire. The subject seeks recognition from the other in the same place where recognition was once felt to be missing. The subject may repeat a dynamic not because they want to, but because the unconscious continues to pursue something unresolved. Transference is the bridge between repetition and desire. But transference is not only a burden, it is also a pathway to transformation. In a therapeutic setting, when the subject directs past emotions toward the analyst, something new can happen. The analyst does not react as the figures of the past did. The analyst does not judge, rescue, or punish. They listen. They invite the subject to articulate their experience. This changes the signifying chain. It allows the subject to reposition themselves in relation to their desire. When transference becomes conscious, the subject gains insight. They begin to see how their reactions are shaped not by the present moment, but by the structure of their unconscious. This does not eliminate the emotions, but it makes them understandable. It allows the subject to disentangle themselves from automatic patterns. Transference teaches us something essential about being human. It shows that relationships are never simply between two people. They are shaped by the histories each person carries. It shows that the unconscious does not speak through isolated thoughts, but through emotional reactions, through the ways we relate, through the expectations we bring to every interaction. Understanding transference helps us treat ourselves and others with gentleness. When someone reacts strongly, we can recognize that something deeper may be at play. When we find ourselves repeating old feelings in new situations, we can pause and reflect. We can ask ourselves what signifiers have been activated, what desires are being stirred, and what parts of our history are seeking recognition. Transference also teaches us that the past does not simply disappear. It lives within us in the form of signifiers, expectations, and emotional pathways. But it also teaches us that the past can be reinterpreted. When we speak, when we reflect, when we recognize the movements of transference, the signifying chain can shift. We can inhabit our desire differently. As we reach the close of this episode, I invite you to reflect gently on your relationships. Think about the moments when you felt something familiar without knowing why. Think about the reactions that surprised you. Think about the patterns that repeat. These experiences are not mistakes. They are expressions of the unconscious. They are attempts to speak, to find recognition, to transform something unresolved. In our next episode, we will explore the analyst's position, looking at why the analyst listens in a particular way, why they do not advise, and how their position allows the subject to encounter their own unconscious truth. This will deepen our understanding of what makes analysis different from ordinary conversation and why the analyst's silence is so important. But for now, I hope this episode has helped you see transference with more clarity and compassion. It is not something to fear, it is something to understand. It is a doorway into the unconscious, into desire, and into the deeper structure of human connection. Thank you for listening. This is the William Gomes podcast. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and I will speak with you again soon.